Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I am your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime gods, the Cat. And Cat, you are looking like death warmed over.
I think I have another sinus infection. Go me! Ooh, I'm in agony. I sound really, really stuffy, and I don't even have a cold or anything. It is literally everything in my face is so inflamed.
You sound a lot better than you did a couple minutes ago.
I'm trying to talk kind of quiet because my throat really hurts from all the sinus drainage. But it's not as much sinus drainage as I'd like because I'm still in agony.
Okay, well, we hope you feel better soon. And, Birdman, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's just kind of a low-key energy day, if anything. I'm doing all right. I've been very busy doing political activism for the last 2 weeks, and let me tell you, that is incredibly infuriating and frustrating. But worth it in the end.
Yes, well, okay, all right then. As for me, I've been doing a pretty good job keeping my sanity over the course of this whole quarantine. I've been playing a lot of video games. I probably finished more games in the last 2 weeks than I did in all of 2019. So I don't know if that says anything about how bored I am or my normal attention span when it comes to gaming, but I'll leave that up to you. But anyway, we got a pretty fun show for you guys tonight. Tonight we are discussing movie theaters. Are they going to survive this lockdown, and what could be done to adjust? We're going to talk about some of the things that movie distribution companies are doing to get their product out there to the people and how that's affecting theater chains. So yeah, that's going to be an interesting discussion. But of course, there is procedure to follow, so we're going to begin, as always, with Ask a Geek, and we got some questions here. Let's see. First question here comes from Lacey, and it is for you, Kat. And her question is: are you looking forward to the final season of She-Ra, and what do you most want to see?
Oh gosh, yes, I'm very excited. I didn't realize, I think, going in that it was going to be the last season. I think I just recently found that out, and I think it's actually a good point to be ending it. I feel like they're in a good spot after this season. In terms of character growth and everything. I guess, oh gosh, I'm looking forward to antics between Catra and Glimmer, who are stuck together right now. That should be fun. I'm super looking forward to whatever happens with Scorpia, because she's just the best. I am looking forward to learning more about Horde Prime and sort of like what his conquests have been, because I know we're not gonna get probably a He-Man spin-off of this particular series because Netflix is already doing its own He-Man show with Kevin Smith, so these two series will not be related to each other, but it would be interesting to see if they sort of like mention some stuff, like maybe allude to some stuff would be kind of cool. I think there's been a bunch of spoilers out because somebody was talking about it in my Twitter timeline, and they've released some photos from it, and there was at least one picture of everybody dressed up, so we're like Princess Prom 2 maybe? I'm looking forward to whatever involves every character being dressed up nice, because like whatever season 1, I guess, Princess Prom, was a really, really great episode, and it was really nice to see characters in other clothes, and I'm really looking forward to whatever circumstance means that they all have to dress up again, because that's great.
Okay, alrighty. And Mike, we got a question here for you. This one, excuse me. This one comes from Ray, and his question is: if you could own any one movie prop, what would your dream prop be?
RoboCop's Auto 9 from the original movie, the firing one, or the M41A pulse rifle from Aliens. If I could have any props, there'd be a tie between those two. Okay. Because I love the armor design of them both. They're both based upon real firearms. The Auto 9 being the Beretta 93R, the M41A pulse rifle bits of a Franchi 12 Spaz shotgun with a Thompson submachine gun with kind of like a profile of the M16 assault rifle. They're just fantastic pieces of technology and iconic of sci-fi weaponry in the 1980s. So they would be my personal defense weapons should I ever need them, but I'm in Canada. Realistically, who's coming after me besides bears? Probably not even kidding when I say that. They would look very cool on the wall. Plus I can say your move, creep. And yeah.
Okay. And let's see here. Next question here comes from Peter, and he's got a 3-part question for me. Game collecting questions. First one is, what is the most money I've ever spent on a game shopping trip? The answer to that is $1,800.
Oh my god!
I go hard when I go game shopping. Second part of the question is, what is the most I've ever spent on a single item? That would be $950 for my Nintendo Wii Developers Kit, which if you're watching on the YouTube feed, if you look now, you'll see actually a photograph of that dev kit up on my above door space of awesome things. It's the black box there with the NDev written on it. I'm trying to see if I can establish the provenance of it and find out what developer it belonged to. But I don't know if there's any way to pull that from the device itself or if there's a serial number or something that I need to look for. So if anybody knows how to do that, I'd appreciate it. And then his third question is, what is the highest value to investment return that I've gotten on a single item? So basically he's asking what is the least amount I paid for the most valuable item, for a valuable item that's appreciated greatly. And that is my copy of Rule of Rose for the PlayStation 2, which a buddy of mine fucking hates my guts for because I spent all of $20 for it, and it's worth a little under $400 now. So as the reason why I got such a great deal on this, because I was one of the few people who bought it when it first came out. So in the early to mid 2000s, there was a shop up in Glen Burnie called Power Gamer that did retro games. They also sold a bunch of, obscure titles and imports. So if you wanted like an obscure, titles didn't really get a wide release, they would usually have it. Or if you want to get, an obscure import game, they were the place to go to. And they got a stack like 30 high of Rule of Rose when it first came out. And y'all, they could not give this game away. They just kept slashing the price on it, $10 off, $20 off, $30 off. Finally, when they cut down the price to $20, that was when I bought it. And of course, PlayStation 2 horror games now are automatically god-awful expensive. What makes Rule of Rose even worse, it's an Atlas title from before the Sega buyout, and Atlas games were all small print runs back in the day. Now, the reason why my buddy hates my guts on this is because he went to the same store. We were both, Power Gamer regulars, and he kept on putting off buying the game, just like, oh, I'll get another day. I don't see it getting really expensive. The cheapest copy that he's been able to find now is a loose disc for $200. So every time Rule of Rose comes up in conversation, he gets this look on his face like he's tasting butt. It's really funny. All right, and let's see here now. Okay. Here's a question here. I'm going to open this one up to all of us, and this one comes from Erica, and her question is, with Mandalorian Season 2 on the horizon, what are some things that we would like to see? So, Birdman, let's just start with you. What's something you'd like to see in Mandalorian Season 2?
Well, I know with some of the casting news, I know they've cast Rosario Dawson, they've cast Katie Sackhoff. That news broke just as this recording is, and they got Tamura Morrison back as Boba Fett. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the background explored about the siege of Mandalore, which happened just after Star Wars Clone Wars and before Rebels. So I'm looking to see that explored a little bit. I'm looking to see more of the culture of the Mandalorians. I mean, Baby Yoda's cool and all, but I want to see this culture really kind of fleshed out. I'm hoping to see more flashy pieces of technology. I mean, we saw a Scout Walker, we saw X-wings, we saw a new version of a TIE fighter. So maybe seeing some new and exciting tech before the First Order comes in, because it only takes place like 5 years before or after Return of the Jedi, so before the First Order and the Battle of Jakku. So maybe some inklings about the First Order if they really want to tie it to the new Disney canon, but if they have it firmly established in their own timeline, maybe some throwbacks to the OT. So just exploring parts of the galaxy that we maybe wanted to know a little bit more about, but I'm always up to see new and exciting bits of the Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, when I found out Katie Sackhoff was cast, I like jumped, because as I've mentioned many times on the show before, I am a huge fan of the 2003 Battlestar Galactica series, and she played Starbuck in that series and was awesome. So I am really looking forward to seeing what she does in The Mandalorian. So that was really exciting for me. Kat, what about you? What are you looking forward to seeing in Mandalorian season 2?
Gosh, I feel kind of bad for saying this, but there's nothing I'm really looking forward to. Like, it's kind of like with the first season, I don't really have any expectations for it, and I kind of don't want to set myself any expectations for it in the event that those expectations are then dashed. So like I'm not really trying to think too hard about what I want to see out of it, because I don't think I'm not clever enough to predict or just set any sort of, like, I don't know. I just don't know. All I think of is that meme of that dude who's like, I want to see the baby. Like, that's all I can think of is that stupid meme. I guess I just want to see more Mandalorians. That's it. Just more cool fights. That's it.
And with that is all the Ask Geek questions that we have this week. Thank you, as always, for sending them in. You guys always can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. Love getting your questions. Love reading them on the air. So go ahead and send your questions in. You just might get yours read on the show. And so with that, we're going to jump into our discussion topic this week. And with the lockdown and quarantine, the whole COVID-19 thing, of course, one of the things that we miss, that we love from the before time, is going to the movie theaters. We're not really able to do that, and a lot of movie companies now are starting to find alternative ways of getting their products out to the consumer, bypassing theaters entirely. I think the most notable case was I think it was Sony Pictures releasing Trolls 2 directly to streaming. Universal.
Yeah,
okay.
Universal did Trolls World Tour. Sony did Bloodshot, and then they also released, I can't remember the company, but they also did Invisible Man very quickly. Warner Brothers did Harley Quinn very quickly, and Sonic the Hedgehog from Paramount came out remarkably fast, as well.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, Trolls just looks like a Sony movie to me. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So we're seeing all these film companies finding ways to bypass the theater system to get their films out to audiences, and theater chains aren't exactly happy with it. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about this phenomena and see if we think, is this kind of like the future of movie distribution, or what are some alternatives that might maybe, is the theater system going to even be around for much longer, or what are some alternatives that might be explored in the wake of this whole lockdown thing? So, Mike, let's start with you. What are your general thoughts on this whole phenomena?
Well, looking at the entertainment industry, I mean, it's vastly different in Canada because we only really have Cineplex / Galaxy theaters up here in Canada. And I'm not even so much sure about Cineplex because I think they got bought out by another company over in England not too recently. And then we have smaller art house cinemas like Landmark, which only show like second run movies and stuff like that, or basically bargain basement stuff. So comparing and contrasting that with the United States model, because you have AMC among other theater chains as well, looking at theaters being able to directly distribute their stuff to the consumer, bypassing the theater chain entirely, I think, is a completely viable option. As you mentioned with like Trolls World Tour, that was vastly successful for Universal Pictures, simply because they were making more profit than they were doing it through the traditional model. Because how things normally work is a theater chain gets a cut of something, like usually 50 or 60%, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more, depending on the arrangements that they have with the particular studio or distributor. And it's a lot of math, basically, but when the theater can distribute it to your cable company, to iTunes, or directly to you, it doesn't have to pay out all those profits. So it's getting like 80% of its money back almost immediately. And I think Trolls did big money. I think it was something like 100 million on VOD. I don't know what about its digital sales. And even Disney Plus experimented with this, because Onward became available for purchase not too long after it was released in theaters, because it did have a very short theatrical run before COVID closed everything, and it was released on Disney Plus a couple of weeks later. But you could buy it early if you wanted to, but it was available via streaming on April 3rd. I think it's very interesting that AMC went on the warpath a couple of weeks ago, saying we're not going to distribute any more Universal's pictures because they bypassed us and we're angry and we're pissy. And I got
Which is
thinking,
a damn stupid move.
Yeah, considering they own the Fast and the Furious franchise, they own Jurassic Park, and if they're not going to see it at your theater, they'll go somewhere else. And considering we now live in a post-COVID world, and depending on where you are and the county or state, whatever's reaction to it, do you feel safe going to a theater? And I don't. This is going to be a problem that's not going to go away anytime in the next 2 to 3 years, until a vaccine is firmly developed and widely available, or until some type of immunity develops. So the movie and entertainment industry and the health care industry are now linked in a really bizarre way. And I think more people are realizing the value of staying at home. I've talked about this on Twig a number of times. I prefer this method. I don't mind paying $25 for a rental and then paying that money again to own it in a few months, or even owning it outright if I want to do that, simply because I'm disabled. It's very difficult and expensive for me to go to the theater. For example, when I went to go see Star Wars in December, it was a $30 cab ride, or it was $30 in cabs, plus concessions, plus movie tickets. I'm at a base price of at least $60 to go to a movie. So by the end of that night, I think we'd spent over $100 for me and Blair. So this being able to be in my own home, being able to control the environment that I'm in, not having to worry about screaming children or other disruptive patrons, is a much more rewarding experience for me. And I think more people are realizing that the home experience can be better, because most of us, I would argue, have a pretty good theater set up with a television usually above 50 inches now, because they're so affordable. Sound systems haven't been better in a really long time. So it's just so much easier for people to have a great theater experience at home, be comfortable, and you don't have to worry about missing a part of the movie. You can just pause, go to the bathroom, go make yourself a bowl of popcorn or whatever. Plus, with services like Uber Eats, if you really crave that theater experience, your favorite theater chain, at least up here in Canada, via Cineplex, you can order movie-style popcorn. There's people at my theater right this minute making popcorn and concessions, which can be delivered via Uber Eats. So I think the theater industry does have something to worry about, because they're not going to want to risk things happening. And I know some states are opening movie theaters at half capacity right now, what if something happens? Like, I'd like to know the legalese if someone happens to get sick from one of these theaters. Like, do you automatically assume that risk when you enter the premises? Did you sign over that right when you step foot and purchase a ticket? I don't think so, and I'd like to see a legal scholar take this on, because it's a very interesting question to ask in a COVID world, because we are not in a post-COVID-19 world yet. I also think this allows for smaller theaters, or so not smaller theaters, smaller theaters to maybe get a crack at getting into people's homes, because now they're talking about, or I think they are doing, Sundance is going to be online this year. Cannes is going to be online this year. This is going to be the first year that the Oscars are allowing streamable movies to be available for contention because of the theater crisis. So I think the theaters, they're going to have to adapt somehow, and I don't know if a lot of them are going to survive this as well as they want. As I just mentioned, with AMC saying, well, we're not going to show any Universal pictures. Yeah.
Actually, I don't think that's right.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
No. What from what I understood, I thought Universal, or the theaters, AMC, was it?
Yeah.
Said that we're not going to show any Universal films that break street date or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
So
absolutely
that's
right.
not
absolutely
them
right.
saying we're never going to show another Universal film. It's them saying if Universal violates the contracts that we had set out, we're not going to play their films.
Yeah,
Like
you're
that
absolutely right.
Specific film, because that's a huge difference between, okay, well, we're not going to show Trolls World Tour because they broke street date on it, versus we're literally never going to play another Universal film. That's a huge difference. So I really felt like we needed to clarify that.
Okay.
Let me see here. Let me see here now. Okay. I'm pulling up a thing here from Reuters here. Let me close the screen here. It would no longer play Universal's films. Any of its theaters globally, arguing the studio is breaking the business model. The decision came. AMC believes that with this proposed action to go to the home and theater simultaneously, Universal is breaking the business model and dealings between our two companies. I don't see anything specifically talking about films that specifically break the street date. It just kind of that big. It sounds like they're kind of leaving the option open to blanket ban Universal, but they're not exactly going nuclear yet.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It's a stupid move either way, and what really strikes me about this whole situation in the movie theaters is, I don't know what the situation is like up in Canada, but here in the States, for a couple decades, movie theaters, going to a movie theater was just it was a very cheap experience. Like, a lot of theaters were poorly maintained. Crap food for exorbitant prices, seats uncomfortable, badly laid out, badly maintained. But in the last, I would say since about maybe 2014 or so, a lot of theater chains have really made an effort to really spruce up their theaters, clean things up, and provide a comfortable experience. Like, I actually enjoy going to the theaters now because I can, the seats are comfortable, everything's really nice. You can get, if I wind up not eating, I can actually get some food that's actually palatable instead of cancer hot dogs. Still really expensive, but whatever. That's where concessions is where they get you. That's the way it's always been. And you have all these theaters making an effort to be really really dress themselves up nice and provide a pleasant, comfortable experience. Going the extra mile for service, and then you have this hit, and it's like, I don't know. It kind of feels like a bit of a kick in the teeth to the theater going experience. Now, something that I've been seeing a lot of people talk about is one of the ways that theaters could adapt to, at least if not permanently, at least maybe in the short term, is bring back drive-in theaters. And there's actually a drive-in theater that's been in operation for years now out in Western Maryland. That they're considering opening up, because with a drive-in theater, you just sit in your car, you're all sealed in, you don't have to interact with anybody. So do you think that might be something that might be coming back soon? Might see like a limited return of drive-in theaters?
Well, actually, where I'm from in Guelph, Ontario, we actually have one not too far away from me, and I grew up near a drive-in that I used to go to like literally every other weekend growing up. It unfortunately got tore down a couple years ago, but the one here in Guelph, they're fighting with the provincial government right now to open up because certain restrictions are being lifted because we've had the curve starting to flatten and certain businesses are allowed to open up. And you do make a very good case for falling in with the physical restrictions limit. You basically, the only thing you have to worry about is going to the bathrooms and monitoring the concession stand at the kind of drive-in, because you have to have the projectionist and people working in there. So there is some limited social interaction. But if you could monitor that and control the amount of people going in and out of the area, then yeah, that's a perfectly reasonable way to do it. However, though, most movies are not designed with the drive-in in mind because of sound packages the way they're done now, because a lot of movies are mixed, not just 5.1, there's 7.1 or different sound mixes. A lot of drive-ins would have to upgrade their projectors to 4K plus. So it is totally viable. It's just going to be a bit of an initial investment to do it, but I think it would be a fantastic way to do it. I mean, if you can't show new movies, it would certainly work for older movies, and I think people would still go for the nostalgia and just the thrill of it. If studios are willing to play ball with it, then absolutely, because one of the coolest things that I did growing up is there was this theater called the Owen Sound Drive-In, and if you watch the movie, I think it's called Rounders with Jon Favreau and Vin Diesel, I think it is, or whatever. There's a scene at a drive-in. That's my drive-in, and where was I going with this? I was trying to remember. Shit. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, doing movie theaters like this and allowing, oh right, Dusk Till Dawn. So what they would do is for $10, you could pack a car full, which in COVID-19, please don't do that. But pack what's socially safe, and you could watch 4 movies. They'd start as soon as it got dark, and as soon as the light came up, or as the last movie ended, usually around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you got that night of entertainment, and that place was always packed full of cars. And people were very respectful. You didn't have a lot of problems there. And I think it would be a wonderful way to bring back a slice of Americana, because I always associate the drive-in with part of the American cultural identity. So I think it'd be great too, especially with certain car stereos now. Stereo technology has come really far, and if they don't want to broadcast it over FM radio, because that's how drive-ins usually broadcast it, they can broadcast it over satellite, local radio, or even Bluetooth, and just put repeaters in the ground or something. I'm sure there's a way to make it happen.
Okay. Kat, what about you? What are your general thoughts on this whole situation?
I love going to the movie theater because like you were saying, Gonzo, all of my local theaters have really spruced up. So everything is now like reclining heated seats and really like spaced out. And basically ever since they did this, and I don't spend 2.5 hours of my chair getting kicked by some kid, I actually enjoy movies and going to the movies. Even though, yeah, it's hellaciously expensive. Like a lot of my area theaters have like $5 Tuesdays where you can go in for super, super cheap. So they make it affordable because they know that it really sucks. And I also like the idea of everything going, just being able to do it from home, but it doesn't have the same feel, like we've all probably been to a Star Wars or a Marvel movie on opening night when the energy is really, really high, and people are excited and there's clapping and cheering from the crowd. You don't get that at home. You won't get that camaraderie. Like I have friends who will dress up when they go to the theater for an opening night, and you won't really get that same bonding with strangers. It's because it's almost like a convention. With the really big nerd movie titles and stuff. It's such a different environment, and it's really, really fun. And I think if things go the wayside, then that would be something I'd really genuinely miss. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that digital, like movies going digital, is not as easy as it seems. And not from, I don't know what the, the release and all of that. That's not what I'm talking about. There is genuine disparity in the United States about access to the internet. And I say this as somebody who worked at Best Buy for a long time, and like a lot of our customers were the people who lived in the boonies. And a lot of people in the really, really rural areas of America, which is a lot of people, don't have access to high-speed internet. It simply, it doesn't exist. They have access to like one service, maybe, that they have to pay an extraordinary amount of money for. And internet in this country.
So the torturous internet service provider from South Park. That's basically what you guys have out there.
I mean, like I have access to a lot because I live in the burbs. But if you go, a couple miles out from where I live, it's countryside. And those people have maybe access to Comcast if they're lucky.
Oh God.
That's how bad it is in a lot of rural parts of the U.S.
I just got chills.
And again, it's like you 20 minutes from where I live, the internet can get really, really bad. And when I worked at Best Buy, we would talk to people who had driven half an hour to an hour to get to our store because we were the closest electronics retailer. Think about that. Think about that for a minute. Like, they don't even have a Walmart. Shit. So, like, high-speed internet isn't available everywhere. And when it is, it's not always really great. When you have to, like, it's just not everywhere. And you'd think it is. Because it is literally a necessity now. It's food, shelter, clothing, and internet are, like, in order to get by in society. And it just doesn't exist in some parts of America. And even then, it's still prohibitively expensive for a lot of people. And a lot of people, especially, say, the elderly, will go to, or like the impoverished, will go to the public library in order to access the internet and get into their emails and do whatever it is they need to do that involves the internet, because the public library will have it, or a Starbucks or something might have it, but they do not have it at home. So, just having a theater around gives access to people who do not have access to or cannot afford to get that, the internet, because the internet they can get is so shit.
Well, that brings us that raises up another question about this whole thing. Is, do you think that in a post-COVID world that the window between theatrical release and DVD release is going to shrink? Because like Birdman said, we've already seen some recent theatrical releases basically rush to DVD over the last couple of months. I think you mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog was one, and then what was another one?
Birds of Prey. Basically, Harley Quinn and Sonic came out in the first week of February. They were released on digital at the end of March. That is a remarkably fast turnaround. Now, I just got the Blu-ray of Harley Quinn last week, so that's still within the window, but it does seem shorter. In a post-COVID-19 world, it would not surprise me, because typically it's about 3 to 4 months after it's left theaters. If it was shortened to 2 months, that would not surprise me.
Okay, I'm sorry, Kat. I didn't mean to derail you. Go, continue.
Anyway, so yeah, not everybody is going to have access to to the internet, but also because every different website, all these different streaming sites, you got Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, every year a new site comes out for you to pay money. And so we get into things that we've talked about a lot, which is there is an oversaturation of websites that want you to pay for streaming. And what would Universal do if there were no more theaters and they had to go straight to it? Are they going to make their own streaming platform? Are they going to lock into exclusive deals with Hulu or Netflix or something like that. I mean, we don't even know what that could look like because we've always had theaters. So it would be very interesting to see how, if things did go purely digital until a home release, what that would look like. Because who do they go to?
Well,
And we could see like bidding wars over things, stuff like that. Could be
And then
really detrimental.
And then there's
I
also
ju-
that a bunch of these streaming sites, there's a question of whether they're even going to be around from month to month. Like, you know, we saw these ads lately for Quibi, but by the way, stupidest goddamn name I have ever fucking
It's
heard.
bad. It's
And
really
I've heard
bad.
some really fucking stupid names.
It sounds
It's
like an app
financial.
on the Wii.
The last time I heard it sound like that, I was in the bathroom and something came out of me. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh my days.
But I've been reading the news. They're already hemorrhaging money because
Well,
they
they-
can't maintain a subscriber base.
Well, they put in over $1 billion if they kept their current subscriber base at the $5 amount, which is the base paid amount. It would take them 22 or 27 years, I think. I can't remember the exact number to get profitable. And Jeffrey Katzenberger, the guy who founded the company, just did an interview, and he got exasperated with the interviewer when he got compared to TikTok, which has over 1 billion users and is built on short form content as well. And yeah, he got really mad.
How bad does your service have to be where TikTok is considered a step up?
It's bad. I mean, I've looked at some of the stuff on Quibi, and now they're finally giving you the capacity to cast to a TV, maybe. Although you can't screenshot, you can't share to any social media. The only thing even worth watching is the Reno 911 thing. Everything else is hot garbage. And they've even said they're stopping production on things until August. So hey, pay us money for less content. One of the things I did think of while Kat was talking, now if you don't have access to high-speed internet, presumably you have cable or you have Dish, which means you can still buy your content digitally that way, at least in terms of rentals. Maybe not owning it, but it is a solution, if a small one. Yeah, a lot of the business models are going to have to change. And that also means internet infrastructure in your country needs to change significantly, because I had labored under the delusion that your country was remarkably well serviced when it came to internet.
Yes,
Evidently, I'm very wrong.
Yeah, me and Skyblaze still say you owe us an apology for the Google Stadia argument, but that's a discussion for another table. But yeah, no, the internet infrastructure problem has been one that's been talked about for years. And without going into too many of the details, basically it's because all the different companies, they've basically entered into an agreement where they divide up the country into chunks so that they don't have to compete with each other. So, and in some cases, like going on Kat's example, some companies have actually entered into agreements with state level governments where the state legislatures will pass laws where it is actually illegal for one internet provider to provide service in another one's area. So going back to Kat's example, those people out there in the boonies with the low speed internet, I would not be surprised in the least to discover if other high speed internet providers were legally barred from providing service in that area. And so as a result, the internet companies, because they're not technically competing, they have no incentive to provide a better service. So, but that's getting into a whole big long discussion
We
that
could do a
is not
whole episode on it.
yeah, and that would be going into edging up against rule number 1, which we're not going to do. Adam Ruins Everything did a great episode on it. If you want more information on it, Adam Ruins the Internet. Watch that one if you want more information on this kind of thing. But it's kind of interesting that you bring up cable, because now I'm having flashbacks to like the pay-per-view days, when movies would be released on pay-per-view, and you'd have to hit a button on your remote, and then you'd wind up being charged to your cable bill or something like that. So do you think maybe we might be seeing a resurgence of that in the near future? Kat, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe. Um, yeah, I think we'll probably quite pay per view, but like per like early access. Pay that like theater price to go, have early access to a film, and then it becomes free, not free, but then it goes to the streaming
Broadcast.
service of choice, yeah, or broadcast, something like that. Because I think pay-per-view is still around.
It is.
It's that nobody needs it because
Well, unless you're a wrestling fan.
yeah, that's true. R.I.P. wrestling fans. Y'all spend so much money. Yeah, I mean, it could potentially come back around, but I feel like the people who really, really want it really badly find other ways to get it, and they don't utilize pay-per-view. You know.
Well, I mean, do any of you here have a cable subscription?
I don't.
No, it's
Okay,
no.
so
Hey,
I
ba-
do.
My TV watching is, if we're not covering it for the show, I don't watch it because I watch almost no television.
My wife watches a fair chunk, and they do have this on-demand section where you can rent older movies for $1, or you can rent newer releases for usually about $7 or $8, and it's usually second-run stuff. I'd be very curious to see how this adapts. I didn't look before the show to see how much Trolls World Tour was on my Rogers On Demand, which is one of the major cable companies up here in Canada. Pay-per-view is still very much an option because it's an easy delivery service that everybody can have access to. Same with satellite dish, and it may be easier to deal with cable providers to make sure you can get the content if you want it. That's just thinking outside the box if you didn't want to go into a pure digital. And I don't know how they'd handle. I mean, they could develop some kind of a back end. So if you rent a movie and you want to buy it, it just says, hey, this person's cable box number or your account number is tied. They own, I don't know, Bloodshot, and they can watch it whenever they want. It'd be no different than iTunes, and you can just watch it however you want via your cable box. So it's not outside the possibility of developing. It would require some research and some R&D for sure, but you could do it.
The issue that arises with that is the film then provided through the cable connection or through the internet connection? Because it's provided through the internet connection, then we're right back at square one. Not everyone has high speed internet to provide to take that, and I don't know. And because so many so many internet providers in the United States are also the cable providers, that's something that could very well be an issue. It could be a case where the cable providers are just sending all the movies and stuff through the internet connection and not actually sending the signal through cable anymore.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure because it's a little more technical than what I understand. Because I have digital cable, and I don't know what it's like in the States. I've never had digital cable in the country. I've always been fortunate enough to live, at least if not on the edge of a city, directly in the city. So I've never had to deal with kind of rural stuff, and I don't know what it's like. The last time I lived rural was like 2001, so it's been a while. So I would presume most places are digital cable by now, but I can't speak to that from any degree of expertise.
Okay, so we're kind of running close to the end of the clock here. So the question that now I want to ask is, how would you like to see the theater system adapt to go forward with this? So, Kat, let's start with you. How would you like to see the theater system adapt, or how would you like to see film delivery adapt going forward?
I personally would really like it if we went to like all digital, just because it would be really convenient for me. Not that I think that that's convenient for other people, but I think it would be fun if film companies did stuff like arrange watch parties, and if the technology for that got a little bit better. And again, it all depends on your internet connection. Mine's really shitty sometimes, but otherwise it's all right. But I think if you like, the thing that I would miss the most about theaters would be the watching it with other people who can get hype about it. And it would be really fun if there was an increased number of ways to do watch parties. I know there's some out there right now, and I haven't tried any of them out. But you know, if one person rents the movie and or buys the movie or whatever, and then we could throw watch parties and everybody get together and stream it or something like that. That would be, I think, at least for the interim, a really fun way to keep people together and keep the spirit of going to the movies alive. But going forward, I feel like we're going to have to make that leap to digital at some point, because of the just hurtling forward of technology and the way everything's going. It's not going to go extremely fast, but we will be there one day, I think. Because the overhead costs of theaters is so much, and I mean, the movie-going experience is so expensive. And it's not getting any cheaper. It's not going to go back down to old pricing. It's not gonna be a thing that's gonna happen. Gone are the days of dollar tickets and stuff like that. So the only way to go is forward, and I believe that forward is digital. So
Okay.
I'm thinking we'll get there someday. Access to the technology is still a bit hairy universally, but we'll get there at some point.
All right, Birdman, what about you?
Well, I am most definitely looking forward to a more digital future just because I am so well connected in that world. I mean, not just from a physical convenience point of view. I just think it's a better way for more people to gain access to it, depending on their situations, of course. I don't know. I mean, the system's going to have to adapt. The theater model and the distributor model is going to have to change if we want the theater experience to survive. And I think the studios hold all the power because most people have an internet connection. Almost everybody has a computer. You don't need to go down to your local AMC. All you need is a computer and a monitor, or your phone even, or whatever, to watch the movie. So if they want to cut out the middleman, they can. The theater is selling you the experience, and it's been so ingrained in us since theaters first became a thing in like the 1920s or 30s that it's just become part of the cultural identity. But now that is now shifting. So if we want to do that, I'm completely okay with it, not just for health and safety reasons, but for kind of a cultural shift as well. And I will admit, I am going to miss going to the theater to see a big opening like a Star Wars or a Marvel movie, but I'm also not willing to risk my life for it. And although this does bring up an interesting point, which we didn't really kind of talk about, it comes down to digital ownership. For example, Amazon, if you buy a movie, they can take that away from you at any time. Same with like iTunes.
We've done a whole episode on that.
Yeah, so there are rights problems there as well. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting future, I'm sure. I think 2020 in terms of movies is a write-off because I know in a month and a half, Ghostbusters was supposed to come out. Now it's moved to March of next year. And I still haven't decided if I'm going to go to the theaters to see that. I may see what Sony does. If they do something with digital distribution, I'll definitely buy it that way. No problem. Here's my money. Here's a pre-order. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting times ahead.
Well, I have always believed that everything moves in cycles. So while I can see maybe the theater system shrinking in the near future, I don't think it's going to completely go away long term. So because like Kat mentioned, going to the theater to see a film, I mean, it's not just about the movie, it's about the experience. You're seeing it with people, you're getting hype about something. I mean, you know, just go look on YouTube at the videos of audience reactions to Avengers Endgame. You don't get that in a digital distribution model. You don't get that kind of hype. So while I do see digital distribution rising, I don't see it completely replacing the theater system long term. Maybe for just as long as the lockdown is a major thing. But I don't see the theater system going away completely. It's just like I said, because it's such a part of our culture. I don't see it disappearing. So maybe that's a cop-out answer, maybe not. Only time will tell. But anyway, that is all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you, as always, for listening in. We will see you guys next week for Fools Who Ride, and in 2 weeks for our next episode of Nerd to the Third Power. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
I'm available for pre-purchase on iTunes and Amazon.
All right, we'll see you next time. Taka, play us out.